Electric power issues continue to be in the headlines as the state legislature debates a long-term plan for the future. In Marquette, a plan is already in place. We'll talk about those issues this morning, and it starts right now.
From TV6, this is the Ryan Report. Now, here's your host, Don Ryan.
Well, Paul Kitty has had a long career in the electric power industry, working for both profit and nonprofit organizations. Currently, he's the executive director of the Marquette Board of Light and Power, which is in the process of expanding its generating capacity. And recently, he announced that he would be retiring next year. For both of those reasons, I felt this was a good time to have a conversation with Paul Kitty, who's our guest this morning. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, Don.
Nice to have you with us.
Appreciate the invitation on behalf of my board, our community, and all of our employees, and everybody working hard at the BLP every day.
I know you're excited to talk about the plans, but I want to do a little history first.
Sure.
You're a UP native.
UP native, originally from Calumet.
Okay.
Served in U.S. Army, 6 years of service there. I was a military policeman stationed overseas. Then under the old GI Bill, I received a bachelor's and a master's degree from Northern Michigan University, and was commissioned as an ensign in the Navy Reserves. Spent over 20 years with them with various assignments, deployed overseas, and more with shipboard units like ship repair facility and ship intermediate maintenance activities.
When you started that degree work at Northern, did the electric power industry, was that in your window at that point? Or?
No, it really wasn't in my wheelhouse at all. I was majoring in business administration, and I hadn't heard too much about the power industry. I knew that Presque Isle Power Plant existed. I knew Shiras had a plant. I knew there were power plant entities out there in transmission distribution, but it really hadn't hit the headlines until probably even into the 90s and the early 2000s as to really what is happening in the electric utility industry. So back in those days, hadn't knew too much about it.
What was your first job?
My first job was, as I graduated from Northern, was with Lakeshore Manufacturing. I spent 4 years with them. We manufactured up here in Marquette marine deck auxiliary equipment, base plates for the auto industry, overhead cranes, the bridge cranes, and that, much like Harnisch-Fager. We were in heavy manufacturing and had nearly 200 employees at the Lakeshore plant. There was also a foundry down there where the new condominiums are at now.
Right, right. When did you get your first job with a power company? And I assume that was Upco?
That was Upco, yes. In 1985, I joined Upco and started working in human resources there. In safety, risk management, strategic planning, working closely with Clarence Fisher and Elio Argentati, the former presidents, and working a lot with labor relations, a lot with, like I said, safety and risk management and those issues at all of the service centers and the power plants. Upco one time was a part owner of the Presque Isle Power Plant.
Right.
We also owned and operated the John H. Warden Generating Station in Lawrence, and we were managing the Escanaba Generating Station for the city of Escanaba with our own employees.
One of my memories of Upco goes way back before you, actually, in that they were a primary sponsor here at TV6. Back in the days when power companies could advertise to entice you to spend more money on electricity.
Right, right. Now we're in the mode of asking people to conserve energy,
right,
through energy conservation and energy optimization programs.
And another thing with Upco, of course, that's back in the days. At some point in time, they decided, I'm not sure who they are, that we should separate generation, distribution, and transmission.
Yes.
But back in those days, Upco did it all.
Upco did it all. They had generation, they had transmission, they had distribution, full customer service. Things changed a lot when the laws changed and they started really disassembling the former utilities into what we call DISCOs, distribution companies, TRANSCOs, transmission companies, much like American Transmission, ATC now, and also GENCOs, generation companies. So the biggest problem right now facing Michigan and many parts of the United States is the Genco side, the generating side,
Right.
because we're taking a lot of generation offline.
Well, let's talk about that. There are so many power plants scheduled to change, or to close rather, because of environmental issues.
Sure. In Michigan itself, there are 25 power plants scheduled for closure. And in fact, we just heard that Palisades power plant over in South Haven is scheduled to come offline late in 2018, and that has over 800 megawatts. So we're losing thousands of megawatts of generating capacity here in Michigan, and the governor is charting a course for replacing that capacity with new quick start gas generation, much like what we're doing here in Marquette. Also downstate with Holland, and I know Lansing's looking at something. Wolverine Power put in combined cycle units and up near Kalkaska. So a lot of that is changing, but with these units coming offline, there has to be a replacement for the power.
And there are big environmental issues that are being still debated, I guess, in Lansing and in Washington.
Yeah, the Clean Air Act is still somewhat up in the air. We've been involved in Boiler Mac, trying to get the maximum allowable technology for mercury. We just spent nearly $300,000 on mercury removal at a Shiras number 3 unit. Unit 2 is now 10% limited. It's a Stoker coal-fired unit. It's old, but it's limited under Boiler Mac to 10%. Now, in reality, we haven't run Unit 2 more than 10% over a number of years. We use it for peak and power, we use it for reliability, and during the cold snaps, we use it as a backup for heat in our Shiras steam plant.
Okay. We'll talk more about what's going on at the Marquette Board of Light and Power after we take a break. Back with more after we take this commercial break. Our guest this morning is Paul Kitty. Paul is the Executive Director of the Marquette Board of Light and Power. Let's just do a quick little history. The Board of Light and Power has been around for a long time, hasn't it?
Board of Light and Power has been around since 1899.
Amazing.
We're currently going to be entering a 128th year of operation as it's kind of a municipal entity. Went through a number of stages years ago where they had the Collinsville Dam, and then we built number 2 dam in 1922, and then the tourist park was originally designed as a hydro project, and we recently restored that one back 4 years ago at a cost of $4.8 million, but that was commissioned in 1924. From then we started putting in what we call diesel units, a diesel plant. We had about 8 big units there that really, not like the units we have we're getting today, but there were 2 or 3 megawatt units which provided power. And then, interestingly enough, we were the first municipal entity to light up a lighthouse on the Great Lakes in 1928. In fact,
Really?
we participated with the Marquette Lighthouse celebration this summer. So since 1928. Then in the 60s and 67, they started building the Shiras steam plant. And they put unit 1 online there, that's coal-fired unit, 12 megawatts. And then later in 74, they put unit 2 on, 20 megawatt unit. And then in 1983, they commissioned and installed unit 3, which is it's a pulverized coal unit. It's really kind of state-of-the-art as far as coal units. It uses coal from Coal Strip, Montana. And that's a 44 megawatt unit, and that's primarily our breadwinner right now.
That's the workhorse right now.
That's really the workhorse, and our crews and our engineers have done a phenomenal job of keeping that what I call operationally ready.
Well, in fact, one of the things I know that the Board of Light and Power prides itself on is reliability. And talk to us about that, because it's really an outstanding record.
Our reliability and really our board, our community, and our employees take a lot of pride in it. We're an RP3 energy provider. We're really one of the top 30, a diamond level RP3, and one of the top 30 municipal utilities in the United States. Now, when you think about that, there's over 2,000 of them out there. We feel real good about that. And that's based on system improvements, innovation, safety, and employee development. So we take a lot of pride every day. Our reliability index is 99.9969%. These units that we're putting in now will have a 99% availability index also. And our crew response time runs between 16 and 22 minutes by the time we get a call at a power plant and we dispatch a crew that the time they're at your shop, your resident, is between 16 and 22 minutes. We have 2 people on standby.
I have to tell you, every once in a while I see these commercials for a generator, you know, a portable generator. And I think, well, why would I ever use that? My lights are never out in Marquette. Rarely.
Thank you. Thank you. That speaks well for our system improvements, for what our employees do every day.
Let's talk about, you decided, or your organization decided, within the last couple of years that you had to make some changes.
Yes.
What was your concern and what was your solution?
Well, we had several things that we were evaluating. Number one, our units, the average age of our generating units, including our combustion turbine, which is a peaking unit, it's basically a jet engine on skids, had a combined age of about 38 years. Presque Isle, then the second point, Presque Isle, we understood that Presque Isle was not going to operate beyond 2020. And Presque Isle, the men and women up at Presque Isle, they run those units, and those are the workhorses here for the Upper Peninsula. Without that plant, there has to be other generation on, or you're going to have major problems with voltage issues and that. So that plant will be replaced. And then the other thing was, in October of 2014, our firm transmission, which we were purchasing for network transmission through MISO, that went away. So we were back to being island like we were back in 1974. Prior to 1974, Marquette operated as an island before the 69,000 volt line connected us to the transformer across the Dead River in the switchyard at Presque Isle. Now, that switchyard is owned and managed by American Transmission Company, and then Wisconsin Energy runs that plant. But prior to 74, we were islanded. So getting back to that, there's a single point of failure. So if that were to fail, we'd be on our own. Also with our aging units, we thought we need to do something, and we need to do it here. We need to reinvest back in the community.
Okay, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Back with more on the Ryan Report after we take this break. We're talking with Paul Kitty, the Executive Director of the Marquette Board of Light and Power. We talked about changes going on in the industry and the role that the BLP plays in Marquette. Let's talk about the solution, the plan you've come up with for the future.
Well, as we talked about, reliability is the key, and we have a moral and a legal obligation to provide reliable, safe energy to our city and our 9 townships. So we look at that responsibility, we take it very seriously. Our board takes it very seriously. So we commissioned the process of building the new Marquette Energy Center. It's going to be with bonding that we got through Bank of America Merrill Lynch. We're building the engine hall right now for 3 Wärtsilä engines. The Wärtsilä engines came from Trieste, Italy. They're designed and manufactured, a lot of the components from Finland, with components throughout the European Union in there. Those arrived in September. They are now in the engine hall, coupled up with the ABB generators that came in from Helsinki, Finland. And that is going to be one of our solutions to this reliability part of the equation, where we have to have reliability. These units can come online in 2 minutes. They can achieve full load over 50 megawatts in 5 minutes.
Now this is not typical in the industry.
Not typical, no. These the old coal-fired units, because of the temperamental nature of coal-fired and creating a fire in the boiler, they usually take 8 to 10 hours, and if you run into any kind of difficulties, it could be a 12-hour stretch before you have your generators spinning, putting it. These ones run under natural gas as a primary fuel, and also under diesel, light fuel oil, as a backup, can come online and then we can dispatch them right away for reliability, or we can dispatch them and move power to the grid.
And what is their output?
The output is, they're 18 megawatt units, but there's a D rating on them. They're D rated down to like 16.7 because they're dual fuel. So we're going to have like just a shade over 50 megawatts of power from the 3 units.
What's the demand on your system now?
Our demand probably today, right now, would probably be sitting at about 50 megawatts right now. Okay. Now, with, and I'm glad you brought that up, with our coal-fired unit number 3, we're providing nearly all of our demand, and our run-of-river hydros provides about 4.5 megawatts, although run-of-river hydros kind of fluctuates with the water. So we're probably taking in, if I could see the SCADA screen right now, we're probably taking in maybe a couple megawatts, but the demand will go up as the temperature goes down, and that's what we've always said, because without reliability, toilets don't flush. I talk about those subjects in the community. Yeah. They don't flush out there, your furnaces don't move with the motors. Things freeze up real quick because we're going to see wind chills down 15 to 25 below.
And of course, the utility can't have all its eggs in one basket.
We don't have them all in one basket. No. What's really nice is this smart power generation. It's a fuel mix. We're going to have coal, yeah. We have our combustion turbine, our jet engine on a frame out there at 4 plant, which can come online in 10 minutes and produce 23 megawatts. Then we'll have these ones. We'll have run-of-river hydros. And then we're putting in 151 kW of community solar in that. So we're moving into the renewable phases. Renewable is good. It's carbon-free. It's good. And as we move into renewables, we've got hydros producing now. We'll have some community solar right now. We'll have a community solar garden. And then eventually, I could foresee some wind possibilities, because the capacity factor for wind is probably a little bit higher than it is for solar.
You're coming to the end of your career.
Yes, thanks.
You've given notice of your retirement in June. Are you going to miss being involved in all of this?
Yeah, I'll miss it. I'll miss it. I'm going to miss a lot of the people in the community. So obviously miss a lot of the employees, because our people work hard, and I got to give a little shout out for all the employees that are working here, the tradespeople. You know, the Tony Rataskis and Mike Tebows of the world. They mobilize their people. We've got a lot of tradespeople on site. They're doing a great job. They're phenomenal. And I talked a little bit about the work ethic in the UP and Wisconsin and Minnesota, and also the rest of Michigan. This work ethic is phenomenal. I've got people coming in from Finland saying that we don't understand how people work so hard. They're moving all the time. They don't see this in the other places. So just a big shout out to everybody that brings their dinner pail. And we've really never really forgotten, myself, because I come from a mining background with my grandparents. I've never forgotten that these people building it shower after work and carry a dinner pail. I showered before.
Okay. Thanks very much, Paul. Good luck in the future.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I'll be back with some other thoughts for you after we take this break. Well, during the holiday season, my thoughts often drift back to Christmases long ago. While my memories of Christmas when I was a kid have faded through the years, I do fondly recall the Christmases when my kids were little. You know, each family handles the Christmas gift opening in their own way. Some do it on Christmas Eve, some the next morning. We're Christmas morning people. And when my kids were little, the larger Santa Claus gifts weren't wrapped, but available for them to see when they rushed to the Christmas tree on that very special morning. But my story today is not about Christmas morning, but late in the evening on Christmas Eve. It was time to get the major gifts ready and under the tree, and that's when it happened. There's a phrase that always produces anxiety for me, and I think for others. That dreaded phrase, "some assembly required." It's a phrase that can cause one to break out in a sweat any time of the year, but it's especially troublesome on that night before Christmas. I should tell you that as I grew older, I learned to be more patient, but that was not the case when I was a younger man. And if anything was going to test that patience, it began with that phrase, "some assembly required." You've probably been there. You're putting together a bicycle, a train set, a fancy dollhouse, a game table, whatever it might be, and things just aren't going well. Oftentimes your first thought is, what idiot wrote these directions? Obviously not someone who actually had to use them to assemble all those parts lying on the floor in front of you at that moment. And sometimes after following those directions for an hour or more, you suddenly realize that because the instructions weren't very clear, you put some key parts in backwards. The toy won't work with the parts in backwards. So you need to take it apart and start all over again. Or how about this? Has this happened to you? You have a toy that you know is going to be your child's favorite, and you discover it requires 3 AAA batteries. It didn't say that on the outside of the package. And now, late at night on Christmas Eve, there's not a store open anywhere selling AAA batteries. At that point, you're tired, you're frustrated, and you scour the house hoping to rob 3 AAA batteries from some other device so the toy will work in the morning. And nowadays, we have a new challenge to deal with. Since most of our toys are made in China or some other far-off land, they must be securely packaged, and they come so tightly and strongly packed, the kids lose interest before you can get them out of the packaging. First, there's that indestructible plastic, which is almost impervious to any cutting instrument. I mean, you could build a tank out of this stuff. And then there's the twist ties, not the simple ties like you might find on a loaf of bread. These are longer, stronger, tightly wound, and a lot more than you think they'd need. And they're almost impossible to remove without the help of some heavy-duty tools. Of course, there's a lot more to Christmas than I just described, but they are memories of Christmas, memories of impatience and frustration. But I wouldn't trade them for anything in the world. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Before we go this morning, I want to tell you that when we get together next, it will be Christmas morning. We have a show planned for that day with some Christmas surprises, including a chance to get to know some of the TV6 News people a little better, and the reading of an updated version of a Christmas classic. You don't want to miss it. Keep in mind that our show can also be seen at uppermichigansource.com. The most recent edition will be available starting on Monday afternoon. Thanks to Paul Kitty for joining us this morning. We all depend on electric power every day, so it was good to get his perspective on where the industry is heading. Thank you for joining us today. Hope we can look forward to seeing you again on Christmas morning.